All right. So today is the last day of new content with our natural disasters. Um, so where's my clicky thing? Um, Tomorrow is all about review. We're gonna go over some stuff. We're gonna hit maybe some things that we didn't catch before. And then Friday will be some sort of put it all together activity thing. So yeah, before I get started, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? No? All right. This one is relatively short, especially because thunderstorms are something that we in Indiana encounter more often than any of the other natural disasters that we have talked about. So we're going to talk about the causes of thunderstorms, damages, hazards, and safety procedures, just like we did for all of our other natural disasters. But just because we are more familiar with thunderstorms doesn't necessarily mean that they cannot be dangerous. So, of course, my clicky thing's not working. All right. What is a thunderstorm? A thunderstorm is a storm that produces both lightning and thunder, because it is the act of lightning striking that causes thunder. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. They also produce heavy rain and sometimes hail. The hail doesn't necessarily have to do with the temperature outside. You can get hail in the middle of July in a thunderstorm, just because when we get way up there, it can get cold enough for that ice to form. Okay, so these are relatively common. In fact, at any moment, there are about 2,000 thunderstorms going on all over the globe. Most of them happen over the oceans, but most lightning strikes happen over land. And we'll talk about that whole process when we talk about lightning. So they are relatively common. We interact with them a lot, especially in the spring. But that does not mean that they are harmless. There are a lot of impending dangers and hazards that come with the territory of a thunderstorm. So yeah, if it is raining heavily outside and there is a clap of thunder or you see lightning, boom, automatic thunderstorm. Those are the only criteria it needs. We don't necessarily have a measurement system. There's not like F5 or F3 thunderstorms. There isn't a Richter scale for thunderstorms, but they are just classified as like mild, moderate, severe, based on the damage they do, but nothing super crazy or super specific like tornadoes or earthquakes were. How do thunderstorms form? So I will kind of shorten this out for you. Thunderstorms form. Step 1, warm, moist air rises. Warm, moist air, we're just going to say rises is going to be this little arrow into cold air. So if we have cold air chilling up here, and we have warm air that air will rise up into the cold air. After that warm, moist air rises, we get water vapor to form droplets. So water condenses into droplets. So whenever the water trapped in this warm, moist air gets cold, because it's up there with the cold air, the water that was in that warm air will form tiny water droplets. If we were to stop here, that's how clouds form. That's it. If we were to stop here, this is how clouds form. Eventually, these droplets join together, get heavy enough to break the gravity, and they fall to the earth. And that's rain or snow, depending on how cold it is outside. So our warm, moist air rises into cold air, and then our water condenses into droplets. Step 3, cool air drops. Warms. Warms up again and rises. Over and over and over again. So this cold air will fall down because warm air rises, right? If you are in a multi-story building, it is easier to heat the top floors than it is the bottom floors because all the heat from the bottom floors will rise up to the top. Warm air rises. So cold air will fall. It will warm up because the Earth's surface is warm. Yes? Air vents? That's my only guess. All I know is that when I lived on the first story of the apartment complex, I found out that my heating bill was way more expensive than the people who lived above me. Out when they flooded my bathroom, but we'll get into that. So the warm air falls to the ground. The ground is warm. So if it's been like usually in the spring or in the fall, our ground is warm and our air is starting to cool down. So that's why in the spring and fall, these are more common. So the ground will warm up this air, it will come back up into the cold air, and it will cycle. This cycle is called a convection cell. Just like a convection oven heats up your food by having air circulating, a convection cell will also have this kind of circulating air. If this happens in small amounts, we get clouds. If this happens in large amounts, we get thunderstorms. So the severity of a thunderstorm has to do with how much of this warm air is circulating in a specific area. So, if you ever see those diagrams of where cold air is coming down from like Canada, hot air is coming up from the equator, and we are usually right where that meets. That is when thunderstorms happen. So that cold air from the north and the warm air from the south meet in the middle. When they do meet, that warm air rises, the cold air cools it down, clouds, and if enough of it happens, we get thunderstorms. Anybody have any questions? All right. So, just another kind of diagram. We've got our warm air rising, our cold air falling, and it brings with it precipitation. Sometimes mini convection cells can happen within it, and then if the wind is blowing, it can move warm air this way and push a storm. So if you're looking at a radar and you see a storm moving, that storm is moving way up here because the wind will just push it wherever it goes. Clouds may not look like it, but they can weigh like millions of pounds because they're holding all of that water, but some freaky physics keeps them way, way up in the atmosphere. So that's how a thunderstorm happens. Where does lightning happen? I will again condense this into a smaller text. So, water in clouds and the ground all have electrical charges. Just like whenever you are on carpet with socks and you run across the room, you touch a doorknob, that's static electricity. Or if you reach over and touch a friend and you just get like that little bit of shock, that is what happens with lightning, except on a like major scale. Um, so lightning. Lightning is an electrical discharge caused by imbalances between either storm clouds or between storm clouds and the ground. So, lightning is an electrical discharge caused by charge imbalances. So, when lightning strikes, it doesn't always hit the ground. So when a charge difference builds up enough within a cloud between like one side of a cloud and the other side of a cloud, or the top of a cloud and the bottom of a cloud, if the molecules in one part are charged differently than the molecules on another part, eventually that will create stress or potential, and lightning will form to kind of even those out. So when particles collide with one another, just like if the particles in your socks collide with the particles in the carpet, we are pushing charges one way or another, and that creates an imbalance. Lightning can heat the air to temperatures 5 times hotter than the sun's surface. It is really hot. Lightning can be 5 times hotter than the sun's surface. When lightning strikes, it will heat the air. Hot air is bigger than cold air because hot air moves around a lot. The molecules are more spread out. Bless you. So when lightning strikes, it heats the air. Air expands. Boom. That's how we get thunder. Thunder is the sound that lightning makes. So when a lightning strike happens, whether it is between the ground and the clouds or the cloud and the clouds, it gets so hot that the air around it gets so hot so quickly, and that energy gets transformed into sound, which is super stinking cool. Yeah, any questions about this? Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we're not taking radiation into account. Um, and lightning is so instantaneous that it doesn't necessarily have like the long-term effects the sun does, but at like the core of a lightning bolt, it can reach up to 5 times hotter than the sun. Yeah. Yeah. Um, people have survived lightning strikes, but it is not fun. So this is another kind of diagram of how this happens. If we've got positive charges on one side of a cloud and negative charges on another side of the cloud, it can happen. Lightning can happen within clouds. So just to kind of even the charges out, that potential will break. It can happen between the positive side of one cloud and the negative side of another cloud. It can happen between the negative side of a cloud and a positive part of the ground. It can happen between a positive part of the cloud and a negative part of the ground. Um, But this is where lightning happens. It's all about evening out charges. So, where do thunderstorms occur? All over the world. They are most common in rainforest environments where the air is super moist. But some of the most powerful thunderstorms happen right here in the U.S. They are most likely to occur in the spring and summer, during the afternoon and the evening, but they can happen all year round at all hours. If you think about the way thunderstorms form, the fact that it happens in late afternoon and evening makes sense because the air is starting to cool down, but all the heat that was on the ground from the sun all day is still around. So the air down by us is super warm, but as the sun goes down and the cold air kind of comes down from the north, we get these kind of convection cells. Spring and summer, same thing. It's harder for the ground to be hot and the air to be cold in the winter because the ground doesn't get as much heat as it would as if it did in the summer. My thingamajig. So, thunderstorm damages. One of the biggest one is lightning. Lightning can start wildfires if it's not necessarily, which is like we said, wildfires can be a natural part of an ecosystem. But if an ecosystem is dried out or particularly endangered, that wildfire can be way more dangerous than it would otherwise. Rainfall from thunderstorms causes flash flooding. Even if you are not experiencing a thunderstorm, if a nearby town is, you might get a flash flood warning on your phone to avoid bridges or not to drive through flooded roads, that fun stuff. Strong winds can damage houses and even spawn tornadoes. So when thunderstorms get really, really bad and winds pick up a little bit more, that is how we get from thunderstorm to tornado. But even just the strong winds from a thunderstorm can do things like knock down trees. In fact, at the very, very beginning of the school year, before I got my place up here, I was staying with my parents, and thunderstorm knocked down a big tree in our driveway, and none of us could get out. It also downed a power line across the street just from where we are, so we couldn't go down and get the tree out of the way until the electric company came out and got the power line off of our driveway. And then hail can get up to the size of a softball, so like big old chunks of hail, which can damage cars, windows, or kill small livestock if they are still out and unlucky enough to get hit by one. So that's a lot of thunderstorm damage. If we get any more severe than that, we're kind of approaching tornado territory. But wildfires caused by lightning, flash floods, wind, hail, all can do some pretty bad damage. Yeah. Any questions here? All right. So, thunderstorm hazards. So we talked about damage to buildings. These are hazards more directly related to us. Number one, lightning. Don't get struck by lightning. It happens rarely, but it's still something that can happen. Don't be playing baseball with a metal bat outside during a thunderstorm. Don't go swimming during a thunderstorm. As much fun as it looks like. Visibility and slick roads. This is the only picture that I could find where it is even close to what it is like driving in a thunderstorm. It is really stinking scary. I have had to pull over multiple times because I was driving down a highway and a thunderstorm hit that I wasn't prepared for. Had to pull over because I literally could not see, even with my brand new windshield wipers on full blast. So if you're driving and it gets super bad to where you can't see, hazards on, pull over, get out of harm's way. Same thing with slick roads. Thunderstorm happens, water can be in sheets over roads. If tires hit it right, you can spin out. And if nobody can see you spin out, that can be even more damaging. Roof damage. This is both from things falling onto roofs and like just shingles being ripped up by winds. Not necessarily as bad as it would be if it were a tornado, but it can still cause damage to roofs and pick stuff up and throw it. So try to stay indoors. Wind damage, very similarly to roof damage. Winds during thunderstorms can cause a lot of damage, knocking down trees, knocking over buildings. If you've ever been driving in a car and it's not even thunderstorming, it's just windy, you can feel the car kind of pull to one side if you get hit by like a major gust of wind. It's fun for a minute, and then you get behind the wheel and it's like, whoo. So last day, we have water damage. Flash floods can be a lot more deceiving than you think they are. Currents can be running faster than you may think they are. You can pick stuff up, move stuff down. You can see this car here is just kind of being carried down the street. I know when I lived in West Lafayette, we had to be careful about flash floods because the river runs like right at the south of campus. So biggest thunderstorms hazards: lightning, visibility and slick roads, roof damage, wind damage, flash floods. Flash floods can cause a lot of damage to like foundations of houses if they aren't like up to code per se. Watches and warnings. We did this with tornadoes. I always get them confused, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to go over them again. But with tornadoes, we have even more. We have or thunderstorms. Sorry, we have thunderstorm warnings. We have thunderstorm watches. We have thunderstorm advisories, and we have a thunderstorm outlook. So an outlook just gives us an idea of in the next 7 days something may or may not happen. So if you look at an outlook and you're like, okay, you might get a thunderstorm on Wednesday. Be more prepared. Maybe if you have plans that day, push them to another day, that kind of stuff. Advisory, meaning there is a weather hazard that is happening, but not necessarily super close to you or super severe, just like a light to moderate thunderstorm happening in the next town over kind of stuff. Thunderstorm watch, meaning there is a risk of a weather hazard in your future. So this is like if you get a thunderstorm watch, keep your eye on the radio, keep your eye on the sky. Just be prepared in case something were to happen. A thunderstorm warning means there is a thunderstorm happening or heading your way. This could pose a threat to your life or property and means you should take action. So outlook, make a plan. Advisory, use caution. Watch, have a plan. Warning, take action. So if you are inside during a thunderstorm, this is the place to be. Stay informed, keep updated. Just be aware of what's happening. Take shelter in a strong, sturdy building. So like avoid dugouts and like park. I don't know what they're called, like picnic shelters. Or like unstable mobile homes were also on this list. Stay inside until it has been at least 30 minutes from the last thunderclap. If you have ever played, I used to play softball, or if you've ever been at a public pool and thunderstorm happens, they see a lightning strike out for at least a half an hour. Sometimes they wait it out. Sometimes they just tell you to go because it's going to get too close or too dangerous. Don't take a bath or a shower. This isn't necessarily like don't take a bath or a shower because lightning will strike you. Don't take a bath or a shower because you might lose power and then you are in the shower or bath in the dark. Or your water pump starts working or stops working because that's electrical sometimes. People with well water do things a little bit differently. But like just try not to like plan your bath time around a time where you could just wind up in the dark. And then avoid electrical equipment. Don't be welding outside because we don't want like electrical currents to be attractive to lightning. Don't be outside barefoot with a metal bat, that kind of stuff. I feel like Midwesterners are typically breached on normal thunderstorm etiquette from a relatively young age. Yes. Yeah, no, believe it or not, I've been told that multiple times. But then again, I grew up in a very hick town. So if you are outside during a thunderstorm, head inside if you can. Same thing with tornadoes. If you can't get inside, avoid high ground. You want to get low. Avoid waterways so you don't get caught up in a flash flood. Don't go near tall, isolated trees. So if there's a giant tree in a field, you might feel like you should take cover under it, but those trees can conduct electricity or get struck by lightning. So you want to avoid those. Same thing with metal objects under fences or bleachers. So if you are at a football game, baseball game, some sort of outside sporting event, it starts thunderstorming, get off the bleachers. Big metal structures conduct electricity. We don't want you on there. Same thing with metal fences. Don't hang out near a chain link fence, that kind of stuff. Picnic shelters and dugouts and sheds aren't safe, but if they're the only thing you got, they're the only thing you got. So if you can get inside, but avoid things that conduct electricity and avoid things that would be deemed unsafe. Any questions? We got a couple more. All right. So if you are in a car, try to safely exit the roadway and park. So if you can get to a parking lot, that would be ideal. But if the only thing you can do is pull over, pull over. Turn on your emergency flashers until the heavy rain ends. Avoid touching metal objects or surfaces that conduct electricity in and outside the vehicle. So modern vehicles typically take this into account. But if there is exposed metal from the outside to the inside, don't touch it. But let's see. Usually cars are a little bit safer because like rubber doesn't collect electricity. Rubber wheels hit the ground. So the electricity can't get from the sky to the ground, which is where it wants to go. But there have been cars that have been struck by lightning, so don't touch the outside metal pits, and you'll be okay. Get off the roadways. This is a lot similar to what driving in a thunderstorm is like, but imagine just like your entire windshield is gray. Let's see. After a thunderstorm, never drive in a flooded roadway. So if you were in a car during a thunderstorm, you decide it is safe to go again, and you see that a roadway is completely flooded, turn around, go the other way. Don't drive through a giant puddle because you never know how deep it actually is, and you don't want to flood your engine. Stay away from storm damaged areas. So if there's a tree that is halfway fallen down, leaning on another tree, don't go hanging out under that tree. It could fall at any moment. Keep up to date with the National Weather Service. Just because one storm is over, it doesn't mean that another one can't start. Stay updated. They'll usually tell you which areas to avoid, that fun stuff. Stay away from downed power lines. You don't know which ones still have electricity going through them and which ones don't. So if you see a power line on the side of the road in a field, don't touch it. Call it into the electrical company. They'll have professionals come take it out. Help those who need it if possible. So if a really bad thunderstorm hits, you've got elderly neighbors, give them a text, give them a call, check it out. Keep your animals under control. So storms can really freak animals out. Dogs, cats, horses. Check on them, make sure they're okay, make sure they're not running rampant or getting out. Any questions? All right, I think I went really fast. I did. So there is an exit ticket on Canvas. If you could fill that out for me, please, as well as your what's the word? That is one of the things that we've done. I was talking about the safety sheet, the big sheet with all of the. Some people might not have it. Let me see. It is just a simple outlined chart. It's not in this folder. Oh, I need to get this turned in. Natural disasters safety sheet. It has tornado, thunderstorms, hurricanes, earthquakes, avalanches, and volcanoes. You have this one? This one? There you go. Do you have this one? Okay. That is not. Okay, that was the only one I have. I will print out more. So get that filled out with whatever information you haven't gotten it filled out yet. We'll go over it a little bit tomorrow, but I'll print other copies out now. And then if you get that exit ticket knocked out, go ahead and work on any other assignments that you may have missed in the last 2 weeks. And if you have any questions, I am more than happy to help.